I'm Gabriela Fresquez, and this is Radar 2020. Obviously, we have to talk about the long-awaited national event on everybody's minds. Halloween 2020. Like, is trick-or-treating canceled because of COVID? Will every costume need to incorporate a mask? And will the Mike Pence's flight costumes beat out the Joe Exotics, or will the Dr. Fauci's and Sexy Purells turn it out? If Halloween is any indication for how the upcoming presidential election will unfold, we can expect it to be frightening, chaotic, and full of people not social distancing in the streets. I mean, how can they with the way early voting is played out in certain states? People forced to wait in long lines, with many having to cast provisional ballots because by the time they get their turn, polls are closed. But whether the cause for delay is machine glitches in Fort Bend, Texas, or the results of drastically reduced polling sites in Union City, Georgia, the voters largely affected have been people of color.
With everything going on today, I felt especially motivated to get out here and stand in whatever length of line I have to be in.
Between the pandemic, a flailing economy, and the question of whether or not thousands could lose their health care if the Affordable Care Act is struck down, there's a lot riding on this election for everyone. The Latinx community in particular, however, has long been called the sleeping giant in terms of its potential to sway the entire thing one way or the other. The question is, will it finally wake up?
The issues that are driving me to vote right now are taxes, cost of living, and immigration.
This whole political cycle has just overcharged every issue. So personally for me, I'm voting because everything's at stake.
Who's going to help us get out of the current situation that we're in with the pandemic, as we know?
People have just lost everything because of coronavirus, so I feel like that's really important to really bounce back.
The thing is, there really is no such thing as a Latinx voting bloc. Apart from our universal and unquestionable devotion to Flamin' Hot Cheetos, there's no common identity that all 32 million of us eligible voters share. A fact made abundantly clear by journalist Paula Ramos in her new book, Finding Latinx.
You have actually said that Latinx is a political term because it forces you not to think about our community as a monolith.
That's right.
So I would ask you, why is it so important for political leaders in particular to acknowledge that diversity of our communities and not view us that way?
When you start to look at us in a more diversified way, when you start to look at like all of the different nuances, you start to get more people to come and vote for you. And so I think that's why the admiration for Democrats hasn't been growing. It's been steady, but it hasn't been growing.
You were actually the deputy director of Hispanic media for Hillary Clinton in 2016. What, in your experience, was the most effective strategy to connect with our communities?
In politics, the strategy is that you need to be present all the time, not just 4 weeks before the election. You want to be in people's faces all the time. I think one thing that Hillary Clinton did really well and that we did really well is that we were constantly in the Spanish language market, right? She would call into radio talk shows all the time. She would have conversations on Telemundo. Now, the other reality is that a lot of Latinos don't speak Spanish, right? That a lot of young Latinos, speak Spanglish. And so, right, yeah. But that is a reality, right? Like most young Latinos will probably talk to you like this in Espanol. And so I think that's where, that's where we could have done a way better job into understanding like how can we talk to Latinos in a different way than we're talking to their parents, which I think people are still trying to figure out. And I think that's one of the biggest problems is that we've been focusing so much on the older generation of Latinos, right? On folks like my parents, that we've sort of lost track in resources and the understanding of like where are young Latinos, what are they looking at, where are they on, and most likely it's like right here on this show. Like you probably attract more young Latinos here than maybe Joe Biden has.
Latinx people have different political affiliations, religions, cuisines, and physical appearances. And on the one hand, we say we're not all the same. On the other hand, attempts to categorize ourselves is a method of building political power. That's what one Latinx pioneer set off to do exactly 60 years ago. Ed Roybal, a Mexican-American former congressman from California, made it his life's mission to create a national Latinx voting alliance, essentially birthing the idea of the Latinx vote.
This is the first time that Hispanic Americans have played an important role in the conduct of a Democratic National Convention.
Through his efforts, Latinxes were able to join forces with African Americans to renew the Voting Rights Act and fight for the rights of working class people of all colors. But Fast forward to 2020, and the votes of these same working class communities could be at risk. Black and Latinx voters largely prefer voting in person, but because we're in a pandemic and because most of us can't spare 5 to 10 hours to wait in line, we've had to grapple with the concept of voting by mail, something that breeds fear over our votes not being counted. And who can blame us? What with all the drama over ballot drop boxes in Texas being limited to 1 per county, or California's Republicans setting up unofficial ballot drop-off boxes.
Governor Greg Abbott ordered 1 location per county, forcing more than 2 million registered voters to share.
The state GOP in the process of installing unofficial ballot boxes in at least 3 counties.
If voters are misled to surrendering their ballot to this drop box, no security guarantee, no guarantee that their ballot will actually end up at the county.
The party says it will continue collecting votes.
I mean, why don't we just get rid of democracy altogether? So inconvenient these days. All fears aside, though, we have a civic duty to vote. So how are we expected to vote on November 3rd?
I am about to fill out this ballot because I believe that I owe it to myself, to my loved ones, and even to the future generations to do my part in hopes for a better future.
I believe these elections are important, especially for young voters, because we will see the outcomes of these elections for years and generations to come.
As a first-generation American, as a Latina, and as a woman, this is my opportunity to use my voice and tell our political representatives, this is how I envision the future, this is what I believe in, and it's my time to hold them accountable.
As a member of the LGBTQ+ community, as a survivor of the Pulse shooting, I need to make sure that the people that we elect into positions of power are actually going to be there taking care of our community.
I did become a citizen last year after years of not being able to do so, to not make my voice heard. Por fin mi voto cuenta, and I'm voting. And I'm voting for those who can't. I'm voting for mi mamá, mi papá, and thousands of other immigrants who don't have the right to vote.
While Latinx voters in the U.S. historically lean Democratic, the way we vote is often impacted by whether or not we were raised in the U.S., generational factors, or by our country of origin and the experiences we or our families had there. It can get complicated.
If your grandfather knew that you are a fully loaded, Democrat, he will, go crazy. Because they say, oh, the new generation, they don't know about humanism. That's why they're going to fall into it.
But that's not true.
When they think about Democrats, they think about, oh my God, they open for socialism. If you tell them, oh, free education and free this and free that, for them it's like another Fidel Castro. He came to power 1958.
The 26 de Julio, led by Fidel Castro, had turned out the tyrant Batista. To the Cuban people and to the admiring world, there could be no better way to start the new year.
To understand these Cuban-American family stories, you have to go back to the Cuban Revolution and the Cold War. On New Year's Eve 1958, Fidel Castro seizes power from Cuban dictator Fulgencio Batista, backed by popular support from a nation that desperately hoped for change from political corruption and brutal totalitarian regimes.
He inaugurated a revolutionary agrarian reform program and began to appropriate American-owned property.
Castro had repeatedly called for honest general elections, but once he had achieved power, such elections would be postponed indefinitely. Within 6 months of gaining control, Castro turns to expropriation and new, heavier taxation. Property, land, private businesses, and foreign assets, regardless of ownership nationality, were confiscated by the government.
Cubans are afraid of socialism because from socialism you go to communism. They're afraid what they go through. They went through hell. Our generation, I think we just stick to whatever the parents said. Yeah. Now you guys are saying, no. I'm not going to stick to my parents what they're saying. I'm seeing what's going on. I'm going to do some changes.
We can understand it. We can't feel it. We can't remember what it's like, but we know, like, okay, this is what my family went through. And I don't want that, but I do realize too that things are not okay here.
The lack of attention to Latinx communities, especially during an election season, is frustrating. But the reality is that political campaigns often end up focusing on the people they know are definitely going to vote. And Latinxes have a pretty shoddy record when it comes to voter turnout in the US, because many simply don't think their vote matters. So, is it a self-fulfilling prophecy, or should we expect more from our leaders? Could higher voter turnout change how our concerns are met in future elections? Are you thinking about how you can make a Mike Pence's fly costume sexy? Me too, and it's weird. How candidates are reaching out to the so-called sleeping giant of Latinx voters matters. But to connect with us, Hispandering isn't the answer.
There you go. Dance a little bit, Joe. Come on. I'll show you, brother.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry or vomit, which is literally like the entire theme of 2020. Because, okay, fine, we love music, but we know we don't get politicians' attention until you really need us. Which explains why both campaigns keep hitting two Latinx-heavy battleground states hard in the last weeks before Election Day: Arizona and Florida. But for many Latinxes, rallying the vote often begins at the dinner table, where teens and parents have been gathering for centuries to discuss all the greatest hits of Latinx taboos: sex, Jesus, y la política.
I remember that day he came home and my mom had already gone to vote, and I was like, hey Dad, have you gone to vote yet? And he's like, no, I just got home from work. He goes to work at his second job. So he wakes up for his first job at 4 a.m. He'll come home around 1 p.m.-ish, and then he has to leave for his second job at 4 to 5, and he comes back at 11, just to do the same thing the next day. En realidad piensas que tu voto no importa, ¿por qué no votaste la última vez?
¿Sabes lo que pasó? Que aquella vez estaba muy ocupado, con exceso de trabajo, y cayó un día en que estaba yo muy cansado y en realidad sí, me arrepiento de no haberlo hecho.
El país debería querer que más gente vote, el país debería tratar de empujar a todos que salgan a votar. Como tú dices, tú estabas cansado del trabajo y tenías que trabajar de nuevo en la noche, y tenías 2 horas para descansar y no ibas a sacrificar esas 2 horas al pararte en una fila larga. Y eso no es correcto. Es como que no quisieran que votemos. I mean, I personally think that voting should be a federal holiday. And so no, there is absolutely no guarantee that his boss isn't going to say, come to work right now, or come to work in 2 hours. ¿Vas a votar este otoño, Pa?
Yo creo que teniendo con el voto podemos hacer de que la comunidad latina vaya ganando poco a poco terreno y tengamos más representantes que también hablen y digan, peleen por nuestros derechos, por nuestras necesidades mayormente.
All Latinxes care about healthcare, crime rates, and the economy. The same thing all Americans care about. And economic struggle for many Latinxes in the US includes the effects of gentrification, aka what happens when rich white hipsters move into black and brown neighborhoods and open too many gluten-free artisanal donut shops.
I wanted to ask you about the inspiration behind Gentefied.
Con estos pinches greedy landlords que nos quieren convertir todos en ramen spots. Stay woke.
I grew up trying to assimilate and trying to be as white as I could, and trying to, because that was in my head how my proximity to whiteness was my way to getting to that American dream. And in my 20s, as I'm coming to I'm Chicano and I'm proud and I love my culture, and coming back to reclaiming it. And as I'm reclaiming it, seeing it start to slip away, to see that it was all changing was just so hard. It's like I was already angry, feeling like growing up, it was something that I was robbed of. And then it was literally changing and disappearing. And it's like, my God, it's such a, and to feel like I'm a part of the system that's causing that erasure it was just so loaded, and that's something that we really wanted to explore and unpack.
Do you think that voting locally is an important way to actually mitigate the process of gentrification?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's like even more important almost when it comes to protecting our neighborhoods and being able to create and protect our communities. It's at that local policy level that we really need to be pushing our representatives to work for us, and not be working against us. Because I think, like I said earlier, the gentrification and what is happening in so many neighborhoods like Boyle Heights, and it's happening all over the world in so many different cities in the major cities in America. It's not happening by accident. It's all happening by design.
The executive producer of Gentefied, America Ferrera, as you know, has partnered with Voto Latino, and she's been an extremely vocal advocate for getting out the Latinx vote in particular.
And the work that America's been doing is so incredible and so necessary, and especially she has such a focus on Latina voters and Latina women, because that group alone could make or break this election. We got to show up in order to protect our families and in order to protect our immigrants and those most at risk.
Too often, Latinxes and immigrants in general are made to feel like they don't belong, whether through gentrification or sometimes their geographic vantage point. Take the building of the wall along the US-Mexico border, for example. The one that Mexico was supposedly going to pay for almost 4 years ago. We were told it was designed to keep out dangerous immigrants. But voters in South Texas, whose properties are essentially being seized by the federal government, aren't buying it.
So they're the National Guard. Morning.
Morning.
Good. No, we're here to watch the river, sunrise. When I was younger, I would come here and, with my father, enjoy the sunset or the sunrise, or just be here. As you can tell, it's just not as comfortable to be around the river. According to the plans, a border wall will run through this area. Usually, people sign because, it's kind of intimidating when there's people telling you if you don't sign, we'll take you to court. And so that happens very often. But we have some people that will say, I'm not going to sign, and you'll have to take me to court.
And if having to involuntarily sell your land to the federal government sounds undemocratic, think about how absurd it would be for an American citizen to be denied the right to vote. If you're a convicted felon, depending on what state you live in, that is your current reality. And you know who else can relate? Every citizen of Puerto Rico.
La Isla del Encanto, or the Island of Enchantment, as Puerto Rico is popularly known, is home to over 3 million Spanish-speaking U.S. citizens, all of whom cannot vote in presidential elections. And they're not alone. The rule that applies to them and to the other 4 U.S. territories is that if they wish to have a say in who gets elected president, they must move to the mainland. Despite that, presidential campaigns are still courting them.
We're awarding $13 billion to permanently repair and replace thousands of miles of transmission and distribution lines that should have been done many years ago. I'm the best thing that ever happened to Puerto Rico.
I'm running to be president of all America, including 3 million American citizens living in Puerto Rico. I'm not going to steal the money that desperately needed to reconstruct the island in order to build a wall.
The fact is, never have presidential campaigns targeted islanders so intensely in the hopes they'll influence the nearly 6 million people of Puerto Rican descent that live in the U.S.
Los puertorriqueños en Estados Unidos tienen la voz que nosotros no tenemos en Puerto Rico para decidir ciertas cosas que nosotros necesitamos acá.
President Trump recently secured an endorsement from Puerto Rico's governor. Meanwhile, Puerto Rico's biggest newspaper, El Nuevo Día, endorsed the presidential candidate for the first time ever, asking its mainland readers to vote for Biden.
No podemos ser demócratas, eso estaría en contra a lo que nosotros creemos. Somos pro vida, creemos en el progreso.
Los dos tienen buenas intenciones, lo que pasa es que hay uno de los dos que pues insinuó vender a Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico's future, though, is on the island's ballot this November, in the form of a controversial referendum over statehood. If passed, it could be a first step in securing the island's right to vote in presidential elections moving forward, though others see it as the final step toward colonization.
And Puerto Ricans aren't just voting with the island in mind. They're also likely to make a huge impact in swing states like Florida, where their communities have recorded the fastest growth of registered Latinx voters. And someone else who's determined to make an impact is Becky G, a Latinx singer-songwriter who's deeply invested in what it means to be heard, and not just through her music.
To be Latina, to be Mexican American, exactly. I mean, it means everything to me. It's literally why I am who I am today. Although I was born here in America and I have an American mind, I have a Mexican heart, and that's to me, my Latinidad is like my heart. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I put it in everything that I do. And I think that's what makes us so, special as a community.
I feel like many Latinos and the whole world, the whole country is finding out that there is a systematic oppression to our communities. How does that make you feel?
When we talk about the system and people refer to it as broken, I've really started to question that. I don't know if it's a broken system. I really am starting to see that it was meant to be this way, that it was meant to be against our minority communities. And it was never in our favor. We fall through the cracks when it comes to our education system, that, healthcare is not of access to everyone. It breaks your heart. 100% 2020 has woke, I think, everyone up. I don't think I've ever been as passionate as I am about my community as I am today in this year alone. And I think that voting this time around feels a lot different than the last time I voted. And we all know that even the last time we voted, there was a lot riding on it. So I think even now more so, when we take all things into account, all communities, global warming, all kinds of things that I know our communities are passionate about, even more so for sure, I've stepped into it and leaned into it.
Are you gonna go vote?
Am I gonna go vote? I am going to vote. I have my voting plan ready. I have my family already ready to go. And I think that that's also something that I would love to inspire in everyone else. It's like registering is one thing. That's just the first step. We gotta show up. We're gonna have, I don't know how many millions of first-time Latino voters this time around for this election. New voters, be ready. Educate yourselves for what is gonna be on that ballot. I promise you, your voice matters and your vote matters, for sure.
If you need to check your voter registration status, visit vote.org. And if you voted already, post a photo and tag us at Radar Telemundo with the hashtag #VoterOnTheRadar. And for the sake of this great nation, let's hope the results of this election aren't nearly as scary as this pandemic-friendly robotic door that serves up free Reese's peanut butter cups to trick-or-treaters. Everything is gonna be fine, kids. I'm Gabriela Fresquez for Radar 2020. See you next week. Thanks for watching Radar 2020. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below, and let us know what issues are important to you. But only the important ones, because the frivolous ones are so 2019.